So I think it's just the difference between that like uncommon, extraordinary aging experience versus getting older like everybody else and slowing down and shrinking your world to accommodate what your body can do.
Yeah.
That is where it does make a big difference and where it is a sexy topic.
Absolutely. It's such an important thing, and you can't discount how important it is to be flexible in your life. I mean, it's probably for our physical bodies one of the most important things. I think strength ranks right up with there, and we've done other podcasts on building strength. But we have to have flexibility. Number one, just for the health of our joints.
Yeah, I mean, we talk a lot about women, and you'll hear it lifting weights because it's great for bone and muscle, and as you age, it's really important. But if you don't stretch and you do lift weights, you're going to find you much more sore. You're not going to recover from injuries. You're going to feel contracted. You are going to be that person that gets up out of the chair and has to kind of catch over because, you know, the muscles need to be stretched and worked afterwards. So what are your favorite ways to stretch? And what types of things do you do that you feel are very important into helping maintain your flexibility?
I think for me, one of the biggest, and what I've seen in my practice with patients over the years too, is hamstrings. I think hamstrings are so important. Number one, for just to keep low back pain obviously you see your chiropractor, keep yourself mobile and in line and your pelvis balanced. But beyond that, I think hamstring tightness is an epidemic, and it definitely lends itself to issues with your spine and your pelvis.
For sure. So hamstrings are the muscles. They're the flexors behind your leg. Mm-hmm. So they actually are going to be extensors. They're going to be what extends your leg and helps to raise you up. They're the muscles that insert into your hips and back of your knee.
Yeah. So they basically go from your butt to the back of your knee. And super important, they get super tight. I think that's one of the reasons, like for the bending down and bending over, right? If your hamstrings are tight, you're not going to make it to the floor. So I love a good forward fold. Yeah. Sitting or standing. Yeah. I still do. And I hope that I can always do that. So I like to do that in particular. So the simplest way to do that stretch is either you're sitting down with your legs straight out and you bend forward, try to touch your toes. If you can't get there, practice until you can and hold it. Or you could do it standing up and bending forward to try to touch the floor, get as close to it as possible. I like to do it on my rebounder.
That's right.
Because when I get on my rebounder, I can get all the way over, and then I hold the rebounder is like a mini trampoline for those of you who don't know. And I can link the ones that we have on our Amazon site. But I can bend over and hold on to the edge and pull it and get an upper body stretch and a hamstring stretch.
Okay.
It feels so good.
Yeah, that's great.
So that's one of my favorites. What about you?
I think it's really important to stretch and engage your upper back. So
you say that.
Yeah.
True. Very true.
If you sit a lot, you might have to do some stretching of your upper back. I was thinking along the lines of those Egoscue stretches.
Yeah.
So that's not necessarily flexibility, but it does help overall.
It's postural, but still.
You're right. I like to use the foam roller. Mm-hmm. So, for flexibility after a workout. And I think it's also important to stretch first thing in the morning. So instead of in lieu of me telling you a body part or a body group, muscle group that I think is important, I think those are some things that are important for when you get up in the morning for you to get blood flow to that area right away. To do a back bend, to do some retractions, what we call retractions of your neck. Raise up those arms up top and stretch, put your hands, your palms to the ceiling and engage that upper back to get some flexibility in there.
I think that's a great one. I love it too. And by the way, in our Life After Kids membership community, I have a video in there of the morning stretch sequence that I do, because I go outside every morning and do mine. I've been doing that since I had that almost fall apart years ago, right? Yeah. Stress wise and sleep wise. And it just helps to get your body moving and stretch first thing in the morning, to your point. But if you do it outside, you're also engaging your circadian rhythm because you're getting the direct sunlight. So I like to go outside and take my dogs out. You guys have heard me say this before, probably, but while the dogs are out, I'm out there with them and I do my stretches. And that's one of them. Arms up overhead and then bending gently side to side to open up your side bodies. But I just want to touch before we move on you mentioning like the postural for your upper body. And I do think this is flexibility, maybe not what we would think about, but I think we can tend to carry a lot of tension between our shoulder blades. Would you agree?
Yes.
And so we always feel like we want to stretch that area. But what's actually going on is that area is really loose and the muscles, our chest muscles, are really tight. And because they're so tight and contracted, it causes our shoulders to be round and everything to feel tight in the back.
Yeah.
And we've all seen, because we're talking about healthy aging, elderly women who have got the hump back and they're hunched and they're rounded. And a lot of times it's because that and their pecs or their chest muscles are always in a state of tension. So those types of stretches, opening up your pec, your chest, chest opener is super important. And you can do that with the YTFLs.
Yep.
Right? Put your hands above your head. Y, come down. I mean, if you're seeing me
into
do
your
it.
shoulder blades.
I love to open that up on a phone.
You can honestly just do that in a doorway stretch.
Yeah, tell them how to do that.
Put one hand on each side of the doorway and then you step into the doorway and let that kind of push your elbows back towards your back. And then in doing so, you contract the back shoulder muscles and you open up your chest.
Yeah, so your hands are between the door and you let your body and your body weight lean forward while your hands stay in place and it opens it all up. I also like to do that on a foam roller. So you can have the foam roller, you'd have it on the floor, obviously, and you lay on it long ways. So the top of it should support your head. And then depending on your height, it's probably coming down to your pelvis. And then you can lay down on that, just put your arms out to the sides. And that'll give you a nice chest opener as well.
Yeah. So you talked about extensors or the muscles at the back of your body and versus your flexors, and then avoiding that hunch, which should be perk your ears up, right? Most of us do not know for sure. We do not want that. But that has so much to do with just everything that we do that contracts us forward, whether that's driving a car or sitting at a computer, on our phones.
Everything is forward.
Everything's forward. So it's not just your chest, it's your muscles in your neck here that are contracted forward. And then the muscles at the back become stretched and they get weaker. So that's a good reminder that you want to, we've always said, got to work your back in the gym, and we'll have patients come in and say, oh, well, I do that. We're not talking about those muscles. We're talking about the erector spinae, the little muscles in the back that go sometimes just between the couple of levels of the vertebra. And we want to make them stronger so that it holds our body up against gravity, because otherwise everything that's contracted in the front is pulling us down into that hunch. And, and I mean, that's correlated with longevity. So, I mean, to live long, you want to make sure that you keep your head up over your shoulder, and then it's not coming so far forward. Right.
And not only that, it's correlated to longevity. Also, we talk just aesthetically, we want to be upright. But beyond that, when you are in a state of flexion, which you said your flexion is in front of your body.
So when you're rounded in a fetal position, that would be a state of
full flexion. And when your body tends more towards that than in an extended upright position, that flexion state is also a state of stress for your nervous system.
Yeah.
So when we can get ourselves out of that and loosen that up and bring ourselves back to an upright position, you're also calming your body down and putting it into a state of rest and digest.
Right, because we've got the fight or flight system in the nervous system, or that's the gas pedal, or we've got the brake, which is the rest and digest. So that's a great point.
So stimulate that. Yeah, especially like this season of life can be stressful, worrying about ourselves. We're getting older, the kids, they're, all of these things. So anything that we can do to bring in that's going to put us in more of a state of stress-free
so not alone,
is huge.
And honestly, you could do that in so many different ways, but just putting yourself up against a wall and putting your elbows out at a 90-degree angle and touching your head back up against the wall with your feet up against the wall, and just holding that position for a while can help. With your posture, but also with your extensor strength.
Yep.
So,